In this video, we are still in Photoshop, and we are going to talk a little bit about video groups. And here is a file that I've put together, and it has a couple layers, and I've built this character, and I'm going to be animating the mouth talking and maybe the eyes moving a little bit. The rest of it stays in place. So really, I just want control over the mouth and the eyes. And if you look closely, you can see that one of these layers looks different than the others because it has a lot of little individual pieces put in here. And this is a video group. So if you look over here on the side, you can see that it is a group, and it's got this little clapboard icon next to it, and I twirled that down, and I can see that there are quite a few layers in here, and you'll see that if you click through the different layers, it'll select them on the timeline. Going top down, it actually goes from the furthest one in the timeline back to the first one in the timeline. So if you wanted to reorder these, you could of course do this here in the layers menu, or you could do it in the timeline. If you move things in the timeline, like I'm going to grab this clip and move it here, it'll automatically shift everything down. It's going to fill in the space. So if you wanted to leave a gap, shift click on all of them and then create a gap, and then we can move things around a little bit and it'll maintain that gap. So we have this one layer. This is the video group. And the reason why we would want a video group is because it actually makes things a lot easier. Everything is on one layer. And if we move things around, it's just a lot easier to set up animation. So I can have different states here, like I have different mouth states, and I can reorder them and move them around to match animation. Maybe right now I just want him to have a look of, like where he's responding to something. And maybe I'll grab, this is kind of a fun face there. So he's got this regular look, and then he's concerned about something. And we want him to hold that for a while, so I'll move these down and extend this one. And maybe it's something that he sees, so I want to animate the eyes. Maybe he's looking, like he looks, and then he's concerned. So in order to animate the eyes, I need to twirl this down to go to the keyframe. So I'm going to animate the position of these eyes. And I'll set a keyframe here where he's looking at the camera, and then I'll back up a little bit, and I'll go to the selection tool, and I will move his eyes. Let's see what this looks like. Maybe we want there to be a little bit of a pause, so I'll select both of these and just scoot them over a little bit. So for now, that's good. But then we also want to have a little bit of reaction on the eyes and the eyebrows. So he looks, and as soon as he does this face, it doesn't make sense that his eyes would stay in this sort of neutral position. We want the eyebrows to go up, and maybe his eyes, the eyeballs, to change a little bit. So we're going to change both of these eye layers and the cheeks and eyebrows, these layers up here, to also be video group layers. So to change something to be a video group layer, we click on the little film strip menu right here, and I'm going to choose New Video Group from Clips, so from the ones that are selected. And when you click on this, you really won't see any difference on the timeline, but you will see over on the right-hand side, like if you look over here, you'll see that it'll create another group as soon as you click on that, and it'll also change the name of the layer that you're on. So I'm going to click this, and it changed it to a video group, and over here we have video group 1, cheeks and eyebrows, and then I want to create a cut point, so I'm going to select this layer, and I'll click on the scissors, and it'll create a cut point there. And if you look over here, now we have two layers inside of this video group. So on this layer, I'm going to erase these eyebrows and I will create some new ones. So I'll go back to the brush tool. Whoa, it's a heavy eyebrow. There we go. Something like that. Now we've got different eyebrows. So as soon as it gets to this point, we can see that his eyebrows are reacting. And we also want to do the same thing with the eyes. So I'm going to select the eyes layer and I'll go over here and change this to a new video group from clips. Do the same thing. So now I have a group, and if we look over here, this is inside of the group folder. And then I'll do the same thing as I did with the cheeks and eyebrows. I'm going to select that layer and then I'll click on the scissors and it'll trim at that point. So now I can change this as well. So on these, I want to make the eyes smaller. I'm going to make these smaller eyes. So I'm going to erase them. But then now I've lost the reference for where the eyeballs were. So in order to get those back, this is where I would use the onion skins. So I'll go in here, I'll go to enable onion skins, and now I have a reference, and it's lowered opacity because the settings I think are at the default. Yep, 50%. And I'm seeing one frame before, which is that frame. As you can see on the timeline, I'm right on the very first frame, so the frame before is going to be the last frame of this one here. If I move ahead one frame, that'll disappear. So this is using onion skins to have a reference of where I'm at. So I'll hit OK. And then I'm just going to click. Oh, that's too big. I'm going to make this much, much smaller. Maybe 5. And then I'll turn onion skins off. So his eyes get really small. So play that back. He looks, sees something he's concerned about, and his eyes kind of bug out a little bit. But this follows the animation techniques that Preston Blair talks about in his book Animation, cartoon animation. He talks a little bit about limited animation and cutouts. But it's helpful sometimes to have all of these other layers stay static. You have the shape of the head, the ears and the hair, all of these things, they don't need to move. The only thing that needs to move at this point are the eyes and the mouth. So I'm going to separate these layers and animate those individually. And that's where it's helpful to have these video groups where you have a little bit more control and you can keep everything on one layer. So that way it's not confusing and you don't end up with 100 different layers and trying to figure out what is what. So this is one example of how you can work with video groups in Photoshop.